these two types of thinking. Divergent thinking. This is what we think of when we think of being, a lot of us think of being creative. So divergent thinking is when we think we have come up with a lot of ideas. That's why you have a light bulb there. You know, it's Thomas Edison coming up with lots and lots of possibilities for the filament to use in a light bulb. Lots and lots of different possibilities. That's divergent thinking. And then there's convergent thinking, which is going through the work to select and improve the things that you are going to move forward. And with divergent thinking and with convergent thinking, what we have are some very specific guidelines for how to do them well. And I'm going to share those with you now. Divergent thinking, which is our ideation thinking, these are the things to do to be better at ideation. And I want you to think about this when you're thinking about your continuous improvement activities and people are coming up with ideas about what might be the root causes of your problems, or people are coming up with ideas for potential countermeasures to your problems. And think about, how do you think about your own ideas and other people's ideas, and what do you say about them when you hear them? So the first guideline for divergent thinking, to really help divergent thinking flourish, is to defer judgment. Now, if you're like me, it's really hard to defer judgment. Sometimes you'll hear an idea, or you will come up with an idea and you'll think, that's amazing. Well, you know, it might be amazing, but you don't necessarily want to think that right away. The other thing that you could do with judgment that is really damaging is to say something like, that's not a good idea. Or to say, oh, we tried that before, or that's silly. If you say those things, what do you think is going to happen? The person who came up with the idea, or perhaps even yourself, will stop coming up with ideas because they will feel that their idea has already been judged and there's no chance to move forward. And the other thing is, you might be wrong. So it's always important to remember you can be wrong about a lot of this. Now, the other thing I said, which is the thing that I do, and it's kind of my big problem, is I love to say to somebody, I love that idea. Now, the problem with doing that is if you say that right away, then other people may not want to come up with an idea because they might think, oh, well, my idea is not going to be anywhere near as good. Therefore, I am not going to say my idea. It's not as good as that idea that Bella just said was an amazing idea. So deferring judgment is very, very important. The next thing that is really, really helpful, a guideline for creative thinking, is to combine and build ideas together. So as you are coming up with ideas, whether you're doing this on your own or you're doing with this as a group, and we know this from our lean thinking, we want to combine and build things together. We want to make sure that if you hear an idea, it's the right thing to do, to add another idea to it, to combine things, to make things stronger by adding to them. The third guideline, and this is a very hard one for those of us who are very much about, I've got to make decisions, I have to get things done, I really need to move forward, is to really seek wild ideas. And the wild ideas are ideas that make us uncomfortable, that may not seem immediately to be completely pertinent to the problem that we're trying to solve. So what we want to do is we want to seek those wild ideas and we want to draw them out and we want to try to get more wild ideas, because that's where our real innovation is going to be. Now, it might be that you're doing this in a brainstorming session. It might be that you're doing this on your own. You're trying to come up with some potential solutions to something. You might be doing this in a Kaizen event where you're actually working on improving a process. You should really be encouraging people to come up with some crazy ideas, encouraging yourself to come up with crazy ideas, because there you will find some real innovation. And finally, go for quantity. And going for quantity is not just about the idea that more ideas are better, but when you have gone through sort of all the usual ideas, when you go for quantity, you can start to drive towards some of those really wild ideas. And one of the really nice ways to go for quantity of ideas is to start, if you're doing an ideation session, say in an office, is to stop that ideation session, send everybody out for a walk, go out for a walk, and have people think of ideas in a completely different environment. Sleep on it and come back the next day, bring in more ideas. So with divergent thinking, with everything, we sort of do want to put a time limit on it. We don't want to do it forever. We want to make sure we have enough time to go for quantity. So those are some guidelines for creative thinking, for divergent thinking. They're very helpful. I would just, if you're only going to learn one from today, it would be deferred judgment. Just wait before you evaluate an idea, before you judge it. It's one of the most important things you can do. All right, so if there's guidelines for divergent thinking, there must be guidelines for convergent thinking. So let's take a look at that. Convergent thinking, which is when we select, strengthen, and improve ideas, requires us to be deliberate. And sometimes when those of us who are better at convergent thinking have been patiently waiting for the people who are good at ideation to get through all of their ideation, we really would like to go fast. We'd like to go really fast. And what we want to do is make sure that we're spending at least as much time on our convergent thinking and addressing it deliberately as our divergent thinking. And I forgot to mention, this is so important. Don't do divergent thinking and convergent thinking at the same time. Make sure you separate them. It's once you start to go into convergent thinking, you start into judgment evaluation. It's very hard to go back to divergent thinking. Keep them separate. It's actually different parts of your brain that do this work. The next thing with convergent thinking is make sure that whatever you are doing to select and evaluate and strengthen an idea really is related to the objectives of the problem that you're trying to solve. It's easy to come in with personal bias and evaluate an idea because of your personal bias and not against the criteria that you really have from the problem that you're trying to solve. So make sure you stay focused on those objectives. If you are looking for root causes, of a specific problem, and people come up with a wide variety of potential root causes to examine, don't let your bias get in the way. Make sure that you put your bias to one side and you are focusing on the objective of solving that particular problem. In convergent thinking, we want to improve ideas. If an idea is out there, what we want to do is we want to ask the question, how might we improve this idea? It looks pretty good right now, but how might we make it even better? So, and then again, you might go back and use that guideline from divergent thinking and doing some combination and building ideas together. And what you just heard me do actually leads into the next guideline, which is to be affirmative. So be affirmative about ideas means you want to maintain positivity about them. And you want to ask questions rather than make statements about them. And you want to ask questions in a way that indicates that if there's a problem with an idea, there are potential ways to find solutions to that problem. And we'll practice that in a little bit. And finally, because you spent all that time seeking wild ideas and going for quantity so you get those wild ideas, make sure you consider novelty. Look for ideas that look new, that look different, that look exciting. If you want innovation in your lean, if you want to be ahead of your competitor, you're going to need innovation. And then you really do have to consider novelty. If you've never seen it before, figure out a way to give it a try. So those are the guidelines for divergent thinking and convergent thinking.